Hey everyone, welcome. New XTR cranks, nice big bold logo right there on the front. They were introduced together with the new XTR Shimano Di2 that I showed you folks not too long ago. They come in two variants, cross country and enduro. Why don't we take a closer look at them and see what they're about. And thanks to my friends at Bike Zone in Mississauga. Make sure you guys check them out if you are in the Toronto area. I don't just have with me the new XTR cranks, but I also have the old XTR cranks, so 9100 next to 9200. I think there are some interesting design differences that I definitely want to point out to you, but I'm gonna start with the question. Do you guys like Shimano cranks in general? No, they're not made out of carbon. The new ones are still aluminum, just like the old ones. And if you ask me, I've had a love-hate relationship with them. I did like the 12-speed version of their cranks though. I still have them used on a couple of our bikes. But let me show you what you get in the box, because some of those interesting details are right here on it. And first of all, if XTR used to be this premium looking, look at that, shiny sleeves, components, the new ones are all in recycled paper. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but they just really don't look premium anymore. And here in the corner, yes, that is going to be the Canadian pricing of the crankset, but this is without the chainring. You can see the product number in there, 9220. That pretty much telling you that this is the Enduro version, and 165, it's going to be the crank length. Nothing else important there. This is where the fun stuff is, and you see the two versions of their cranks, the 9200, which is 1x12, and it says 168 millimeters. This is a Q factor. Will be interesting to check their website because that says 170. This is the 9220, the Enduro, which you can see 176. Here at the bottom, you'll see Holotech 2, compatible with the existing bottom brackets, 55 millimeter chain line, and this is the lengths that you get for the Enduro cranks. That would not be the case for XC. XC only comes in 165, 170, and 175. And if you're wondering about simplifying their lineup, here's two cranks available, and here's all the cranks available with the previous XTR cranks. And you see 162 Q factor was available, is not available anymore. And just like in the past, the XTR components are all made in Japan. Inside the box though, this would be the drive side crank arm. See that big mama logo right in here. You still have a piece of transparent tape right here, just so you don't ruin the finish in the first ride. Here at the back, you're gonna see the details of the cranks as always. Here's the direct mount that was used with the previous gen. So you're gonna need this ring just to keep in place your chainring. Chainring that looks like this. So this is the interface they introduced last year, was the same used by the previous XTR cranks. Here it goes. And here is where you're gonna see the bigger difference. Take a look at that spline of the end of the spindle. So that's the new crank. And take a look at the 9100. See the shape of that spline is quite different, but that's also because as you look here on the left side arm, you see this preload adjuster that was used with the previous generation cranks. With this latest 9200 series, we're going back to, remember the pinch bolts here, 12 Newton meters is not written here, but I'm telling you, I tightened them up a million times. So you have that tiny preload cap right here that's gonna screw into your spindle. You do it by hand, and then you tighten up the bolts, make sure you alternate one side and the other just to tighten them up properly. You still have, oh, look at this. You still have that little piece of plastic. Make sure you put this up. This is like a safety, so in case this pinch bolts get loose, so the crank doesn't come out. So is this back to basics? Back to the better design? Do you like that integrated preload of the previous XTRs, or you like this classic design of their cranks? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your opinion. Now, forget about the preload adjuster on the non-drive side. One thing that I noticed here that kind of sucks is you have, this is pretty similar to a center lock disc, but you know what? The tool that you need to tighten that up, this used to be provided with the cranks. I am pretty convinced that this came with XTR and XT cranks. Well, there's no tool like this in the box, so you're gonna need TL FC-41 or equivalent from Shimano just to help you tighten up the chainring on these new cranks. And since we're talking about chainrings, they are new design. This is the old XTR design. This is the old everything else design that had that steel ring all around that would last forever. You're gonna see technologies like DCE, direct chain engagement. That is the marketing name, I guess, for their narrow wide like tooth profile of their chainrings. You're gonna use the same chains like before because this is HG Plus technology. So everything that we have right now is what we had in 2018. There was no need for Shimano to reinvent that. And what's new about the new chainrings is the offset. These old ones are 3mm offset, so the teeth are pushed inwards by 3mm. The new chainring is 0mm offset, meaning that it's just gonna push the chainring out 3mm. That's how you get on these cranks 55mm chainline. But if you use the old chainrings with it, you will end up with 52mm chainline. I would highly recommend to use that even on your boost frames if you can. I have a video, an older video, where I talk about the different model cranks from Shimano and how that changes your chainline. I'm gonna make sure I put it in the corner because that's a pretty interesting discussion. But looking at the cranks, there's a couple more things worth mentioning. We have cross country and we have enduro. If you look on their website, they're gonna tell you that the steel spindle that's still 24mm diameter has 19.7 more material on the enduro cranks, and that's gonna affect the weight, but they also say the stiffness of the crank itself. 24mm spindle, that's pretty much what they've been using forever, meaning that there's no new bottom brackets. If you have BB52, MT500, BB93, so all the previous 24mm compatible bottom brackets from Shimano, they're all compatible with the new cranks, which is great. And one last thing, which is definitely a difference in technology used on the new cranks versus the old. If you look here on the inside, you're gonna clearly see how the old cranks were hollow bonded, meaning that there's two pieces of aluminum, one here on the inside. They're bonded together. Remember the Durace design, the big recall that they had with cranks falling apart? Well, they don't have that problem with the new cranks anymore because these are hollow forged. So this is a hollow piece of aluminum that is stronger, and they were able to keep the weight in check. Remember, we have 165 Enduro, so 9220. Here's 214 grams for the left hand arm. That is the preload adjuster. And then you're gonna have the rest of the crankset, 510. Now remember, you're gonna need a chainring, so you need this for sure. And that is 517. Now let's put this old XTR ring, because the new one I assume is a similar weight. Here's your 585 grams, which is pretty much what they say in the specs. In comparison, the old 9100, this was XC-like spec. This is 175 millimeters, and here's your 462. You're gonna need a chainring to go along with it, so that brings it up to 536. Expect the new 9200s to be right around this weight overall, so about 50 grams difference between the Enduro and the cross-country cranks. So there we have it, new generation of cranks from Shimano. XTR is usually the first one they release. I'm looking forward to their XT. That was my preferred on the previous generation. They're all compatible with pretty much everything we've had since 2018. But again, technology allowed them to just bring to us a bit stronger cranks, no more bonding, and otherwise compatibility with the newer frames that use that 55 millimeter chain length. What do you guys think about the new XTRs? Do you like this big mama logo on the crank arm, or you like the old design better? Do you have any questions for me? Let me know in the comments below. Hope you guys liked this video. And if you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And until next time, hope to see you folks on the trails. Why not riding some Shimano cranksets? Cheers, guys. Cheers.